All right, so tonight it's Dallas and Minnesota because when Minnesota got a team back, they didn't want the North Stars records. They became the Minnesota Wild. Just throwing that out there. I've never seen an issue with the Dallas Stars in terms of their respect for guys like Broughton, Modano, Bellows, any of the guys that were there beforehand. So, yeah, and Dallas has a lot of empty seats. Tonight's game, I watched a lot of Calgary, Florida. God, there's a lot of empty seats in Florida. Holy crow. And, with about 5 minutes left, they're all just clearing out. I'm like, wait, you're down by 2, which sounds bad, but aren't you in a playoff race? Why is everybody leaving? So that was eye-opening. Wouldn't see that in Calgary or Vancouver or Edmonton, I wouldn't think. Not in those numbers. You're going to have fans leave early, but man, just startling. And then another action tonight, Ottawa just blew it in Carolina. Like Eddie Lack, as soon as I saw Eddie Lack in net, I'm like, all right, well, Carolina realizes it's over. No, apparently not. Apparently Lack doesn't realize it's over. Lack is capable of stealing a game if he needs to, apparently. So with that loss for Ottawa tonight, that's pretty damning for them. The Capitals, I have to say this for Edmonton. That was a hell of a showing by the Oilers tonight. The interesting thing for me is this. I watched the little highlight stuff they were showing of Tom Wilson getting under the skin of Lucic. And then the announcer says, this is when Lucic is at his best, is when he's angry. Nope. Lucic is at his best when he's playing tough and he's throwing the hits and he's in your face and he's charging to the net. When he's being distracted because some guy's making him angry, he's not at his best. Wilson did a good job of getting him off his game tonight to the point where I think it negatively affected him. And that is something that before the season started I said, you got to watch Lucic's temper. And right away people are like, oh, it's penalty minutes. It's not just penalty minutes. He didn't get penalty minutes on the plays I saw. He just was distracted and wasn't playing particularly well. So that is an aspect of Lucic's game that it's up to Todd McClellan to get that under control. Because Lucic was not... all he wanted was revenge on Wilson. It's sort of like watching Florida and Calgary tonight. I watched Thornton. Every time Thornton touched the puck, I'm like, okay, well, they're not going to score because Thornton has the puck. But he was skating by the Flames bench, and one of the Flames beaked off at him, and he stops and starts going back to that bench. Let it go. Sean Thornton should be the last one to complain about a bench beaking off at him, since he beaked off at almost every bench I saw when he was playing for the Bruins. So, it's one of those things I watch, and distracted players can kill you in a game. When one of your players, whether he's a physical fourth liner or he's a top six forward who's getting paid like it, when they get distracted and their head's not in the game, they're more worried about what that guy said, or what that guy did, or hey, that wasn't right. You're probably going to lose. So with tonight's action, I've gone ahead and used my little mini board here to figure out who's still in the hunt. So if they're in the hunt, but they're not in the playoffs, they're down in here. I think Florida and Boston right now qualify as being in the hunt in the East, and I think LA still qualifies as being in the race in the West. What this means is that at this point with where the standings are, these teams here, so 6 in the East, 5 in the West, are either selling or need to consider it. Now, of the teams in the West, Dallas is already selling. By selling Eves today, they're already selling. Arizona, definitely. Colorado, definitely. Vancouver, their management and their ownership definitely don't want to give up on this. But they're listening to calls on Hansen, so I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, they've probably committed to selling, which leaves Winnipeg. Winnipeg's kind of in no man's land. Winnipeg has points, but they've played more games than everybody else. And now that they're sitting and watching, all of the teams that had games in hand are getting points and pulling away from them. So right now, Winnipeg is not in a good position. They need to get 5 points in gains and hope that the teams ahead of them don't play a bunch of 3-point games. That's where Winnipeg's at. In the East, Carolina, clearly, with the Hainsey move, they're selling. Detroit with the Yurko move. I've been asked about the Yurko move a lot. I'll say this. Thomas Yurko was a highly regarded prospect, in part because he's a Detroit prospect, but he's fallen way off the radar. No points this year in 16 games. The one add-on I would throw at this is it's Stan Bowman, so I trust Stan Bowman knows exactly what he's doing, so I'm not going to say anything bad about the Yurko deal. Third rounder might seem steep, but again, this isn't considered to be a great draft. So now you've got 4 teams who are in that mushy area. Okay, so you got Philly, Tampa, Buffalo, and New Jersey. Where are they selling? Are they buying? So we've got 6 teams that I think right now are hard sellers. 5 that are on the border. That between now and Wednesday, depending on what happens, they could be selling too. And the more of these teams that fall out of the race, the better Wednesday is going to be for all of us who are anticipating the trade deadline. Now, in the West, this is the playoff matchups right now. I went through and figured it out. So San Jose would open up against Calgary. With tonight's loss, the Oilers slide below the Ducks because the Ducks and Oilers have both played the same number of games, and Anaheim has more regulation and overtime wins. Chicago would play St. Louis, and Minnesota would play Nashville. So Nashville drops down into that unenviable position of having to face the Wild in the first round. But think about it. You got the 2 teams with the weirdest logos going against each other, the fiercest, weirdest logos going against each other. Because that Sabretooth, that's just, I don't know. It's just strange. The teeth seem overly large to me, but that's just me. In the East, you have the Capitals and the Islanders. This is what I said. Caps fans wouldn't like this if they're old enough to remember the 80s, which I am. Stop calling me old. Pittsburgh would play the Rangers. This is a matchup that I think would be fantastic. This is basically the Patrick division right here. This is the Patrick division. This is fantastic hockey. These series, both of them I'd look forward to. Ottawa with the loss would now be playing Toronto in the first round. And Montreal, because they didn't have a chance to lose tonight, would play the number 1 seed right now in the wild card, which is Columbus. This would be an interesting matchup in that both teams are kind of cooled off right now. And it'd be interesting to see who would come out of that. It's a fascinating little standings thing we got going on here. But that's where we're at. I think realistically, LA, Boston, and Florida can have an influence. Florida with those back-to-back losses at home against Alberta teams, that's killer. I know they had 5 wins in a row, but I said they have to keep it going. They can't afford to have a dip, and that's taken place. And now, they've fallen to a point where they need help. They need to go on another winning streak. It gets really, really difficult late in the season when you're behind. It's really, really difficult to dig your way out. So, there you go. There's the standings. There's who's going to play who. And just project it out. You could have San Jose and Anaheim in the second round. You could have Calgary and Edmonton in the second round. You could have Chicago and Minnie in the second round. You could have St. Louis and Nashville if they both pull off upsets. You could be looking at Montreal, Toronto in the second round here. And you could be looking at Pittsburgh and Washington in the second round again. So just think about that for a minute. Let's just say that you have Washington come in, and they play Pittsburgh, and Toronto wins their series. I feel like the Friendly Giant when I do this. And I'm old now. And officially people are like, what in the hell is the Friendly Giant? Shut up. Montreal and Toronto. There's somebody laughing in the background too. And then you got Minnesota, Chicago, Edmonton, and Calgary. Now, if that were the final 8, Hockey Night in Canada would be quite happy because they'd be looking at record ratings because you'd have Toronto, Montreal, and Calgary and Edmonton every night of the week. You'd have 2 Canadian teams fighting over that one of those last playoff spots. And the best thing is, if it's the Battle of Alberta and it's the original 6 battle, that means that either Calgary or Edmonton and either Toronto or Montreal would be a Final 4 team. Again, ratings in Canada would go crazy, and Canadian fans would be insufferable all over again. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. This is the small prop. The big prop is still coming. Did anybody notice earlier I was wearing my brand new Detroit Red Wings Centennial Classic jersey? I didn't see any comments on it, and I wore it, and even had a Detroit hat with it. Brand new Detroit jersey, silver bands. The Red Wing is in silver. It's fantastic. Oh, and I love it very much. I am, again, when I get jerseys and have that reaction, I know Yvonne looks at me and thinks, man, did he ever look at me in that manner? Has he ever been that happy to see me? Do I have to get a logo on my face for him to have that reaction?
My face? Wow.
Well, do we want to discuss body parts in a video?
Let's not.
All right, we didn't. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to y'all again soon.